Kenyans' problems.
All right.
Yeah.
I'd like to transition as we touch on just a little bit, and then now we get into the topic of conversation. I see Siasa asking the question, is Ruto planning a cabinet reshuffle? You know, given that a survey indicates 72% of Kenyans believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. But before we look at this, more substantively on the issue of a cabinet of, you know, that word. Omulo, are you feeling hopeful now that both sides have named their delegates, as it were, to this 10-member committee? Kimani Ichung'wah, Aaron Cheruyot, the MP Catherine Wambirianga, as one Sydney Chazima taught me is the correct way to pronounce her name, Hassan Omar on the other side, Kalonzo Musyoka, Cecily Mariri on this other side, their side, Kalonzo Musyoka leading the team. Or is the selection of the people on Kenya Kwanza side already indicative that yani hao ni headliners from Kenya Kwanza?
First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the former Prime Minister and the Azimio Brigade for abandoning the maandamano and also focusing on bringing peace in this country. The same applies with the President, who has taken the leadership in terms of talking with these people to ensure that we move forward as one country. I like the fact that Azimio side, they're very excited with the talks and the rate at which they are calling for these talks and even preparing themselves. It calls for so many things to, you know, to understand. I think the team that has been selected, even from both sides, some of them are very experienced in terms of negotiation, peacekeeping, not only in Kenya and also in East Africa and also Africa as a region. Somebody like Kalonzo Musyoka is not a small person in these talks. So it shows that the talks are going to be very serious. And I believe that most of the issues that have been raised there are going to be implemented fully. And, you know, compared to the last team that was selected initially by both sides in the bipartisan talks, I believe this time round, both sides are going to take these issues seriously. They're going to implement them. We are not going to see any political sideshows. Any hardlining that is not going to focus on the people of the Republic of Kenya. And we've made it very clear that we are not interested in the handshake. At the same time, they have also made it clear that they're also not interested in the handshake. So I believe that if we are going to focus on the issues raised, the 5-point agenda that have been raised by Ichung'wah, who is the majority leader of the Assembly, I think we are going to move as one country, because this country is bigger than one individual.
All right, Joseph, just your preliminary thoughts. The president is heading to Central. Here he is with Cecily Mariri, Rigathi Gachagua, Justin Muturi, Kimani Ichung'wah. Ruto heads to Central. The Standard tells us, amid jitters over proposed dialogue with Raila, Mount Kenya leaders fear that a Ruto-Raila political deal will lead to sidelining of Gachagua, but Ichung'wah dismisses talk of jitters, saying Ruto will be on development tour. What do you make of the selection on the Kenya Kwanza side?
First, I have to say that it was a contempt card on the Azimio side, because there's no way you can be selecting Kalonzo Musyoka on our side to read the talks, and on the other side, the equal of Kalonzo Musyoka is a person like Mbarire or Wabirianga. That's what I saw. Because if you see Kimani Ichung'wah, we are equaling with the Opio Undai, who is their leaders in parliament.
Yes.
But who is the equal of Kalonzo Musyoka on the side of Kenya Kwanza? So if our Azimio guys are not careful, they should read this as a contempt card from the Kenya Kwanza, and that they don't take those as talks very serious. It is, for me, I just see talks for trying to manage the opposition and trying to manage Kenyans, that the president is serious on these talks, but he's not at all. On the tour that the president is doing in Mount Kenya region, I want to say that it's not a development tour. because yesterday I was going through what he's going to launch in Mount Kenya. I'm sure projects he's going to launch, he doesn't even know how they were constructed by President Ruto Kenyatta. One of the projects is Githurai Market. Githurai Market was constructed, completed, hata ikapakwa rangi. And that's the project he's going to launch. He's also going to launch Marwa State Road. Marwa State Road was completed around February 2021 and have been in use for the last 1 year. That is another project that he's going to launch. So when the president was doing campaign for the last 3 years, the project that President Uhuru Muigai was building in our region, that is now the project that they are going to launch. You remember they had those outbursts telling our people that Hatukuli Barabara on those periods, but those are the roads now they are going to launch. So I want to tell President William Ruto, if he's going for a development tour in Mount Kenya, he should go for a serious development tour, launching his own project, building his own project, and delivering to the people of Mount Kenya the way he promised them. He should not ride on the projects that President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta did. Having said that, he's also going for it's a damage control tour. There are people in Mount Kenya, there are voices in Mount Kenya who are questioning their sanity to have voted William Samoei Ruto because of what is happening in Mount Kenya. You remember our region, like I was in Madeira 2 days ago. I had gone to visit a friend who had some issues with the families. And in Madeira region, that is a place whereby those people, they depend on their cash crop is coffee. The coffee there was around 120 shillings. Right now, the coffee there is around 60 shillings, 1 year down the line. But that will not be talked about. What they are just going to talk about as rhetoric, a president who has gone back to the top of vehicle doing campaign less than 1 year with the whole government, because you'll see all the governors there, you'll see the ministers, you see the deputy president. That brings our question. You can see what was happening even in the WorldCoin. The government doesn't know. They just know things when they're all done. Thank you so much, Ole.
All right. Nurdin? Nurdin? My question to you is, is this the timing of this tour? Is it to allay fears in Mount Kenya over these talks? And number two, looking at the makeup of the teams, right? So this is the letter Kalonzo Musyoka wrote to Kimani Ichung'wah, and he said, additionally, we attach utmost significance to the issues at hand. The formation of our delegation to the talks was therefore informed by the weight we attach to the issues, and for purposes of continued clarity, we restate that our team is as follows: Kalonzo Musyoka, who is the delegation leader; James Opiyo Wandayi, leader of minority; Eugene Wamalwa, party leader, DAP; Okongo Mogeni, Senator Nyamira; Amina Mnyazi, MP Malindi. In a boxing match, you're weighed, so that you're equally matched. You understand? Bantamweight, lightweight, feather, whatever it is. Lightweight, I don't think lightweight is one of them, but
it is.
It is? Oh, good. So I'm not Ambumbumbu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you make of, are they equally matched?
You see, let me just speak it from where you left it. That's like saying you match someone who is in the heavyweight division to go against someone who is in the middleweight. And you see, they have, when they go for the weighing scale, before they fight, you have to there's a certain amount of kgs you need to have. So if you can't measure to that, then that match can't go on. And that is why we are seeing the issues from Azimio, because they feel like, there's this, like you rightfully put it, like a big man syndrome. You see, who is my equal in this team? What am I sitting down with my juniors to do? And that is why you see issues of content. They're saying that, are you serious in whatever you're doing? Are you managing us? Is this just a way of putting us in a box and you're just wasting time so that by the time we're aware, you guys are up already and you're campaigning for the next election? So at the end of the day, I believe talks are important. As a nation, leaders need to talk with each other, not at each other. That is important. But at the end of the day, what are you talking about? You see, if you look at both camps, they have different agendas in their letters. Now, the Kenya Kwanza side says they won't talk about cost of living, right? They say they're already doing that, cost of living. They're working on cost of living, so they won't talk about it. They are adamant they have to talk about cost of living. So that's a roadblock. So how do you navigate that roadblock? If this side insists on cost of living and you say no, so how will the talks proceed? So they need to have a common agenda, a common goal, and that common goal should be more people-centric. But we know as leaders, interests, you know, outweigh whatever popular initiative that might be. So at the end of the day, I believe the talks are important, yes, but what are they going to achieve? Because they need to have deliverables. If it's more or less about salvaging some interests, then we end up gaining nothing. But at the end of the day, if they are meant to aid how we move forward as a country, how the lives of Kenyans will be bettered, then the talks are important. Because you can't say you can't have a discussion on how to make the lives of Kenyans better. You see, there's a saying from Mandela. He says poverty, just like slavery and apartheid, are man-made and can be eradicated by actions of man. And how is that possible? If you're a government, you're doing a certain, you have your way of doing things, and I come and tell you, your way is good, but how about you inculcate this, or change this and do this? I've helped in a way. So you cannot say that you cannot have a discussion around that. So I believe the day they bring down the big man syndrome from both camps, we will end up having talks that are meaningful. But from what we are seeing, I'm just seeing another hurdle from what the other committees suffered. Because number one issue in Azimio is cost of living. These guys are not talking about. So what are they meeting for? Oh. And the worst thing is that they are talking with each other via social media. When they have phone numbers, can they call one another and discuss? Let's have a time, a place, forum, and discuss issues. So that shows you it's more or less like you rightfully said, a boxing match where a heavyweight is fighting a middleweight. That is not a match at the end of the day. One KO and you're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although this is now formal communication, right, between the two sides. So they further reiterate, this is the letter Kalonzo Musyoka has written to Kimani Ichung'wah. We further reiterate that the issues for discussion from our side remains as follows: cost of living, audit of the 2022 presidential election results, restructuring and reconstitution of the IEBC, measures to prevent interference with political parties, outstanding constitutional matters. And they say, we commit to respect the issues listed by Kenya Kwanza for the talks, which are as follows. And they're listed, we've already extensively covered the 5 issues raised by Kenya Kwanza: the reconstitution of IBC, implementation of 2/3, entrenchment of CDF, establishment and entrenchment of the office of the leader of the opposition, embedment of the office of prime cabinet secretary. Is there bad faith from one of the camps, in your view?
I don't think so. What I feel is, Olive, there is this talk of who is equal to the other, and such kind of, and I don't know with what measure we are using to determine who is heavier than the other. Because at the end of the day, we have set up a committee to go and have a conversation on behalf of all of us. But then we are here measuring on the minor and saying there is a group that feels like they are, I think, more elderly or something. If it's about Kenyans, then it's just about 2 groups having a conversation. And you really cannot be able to want to decide the people to come to talks for the other team. You can't decide for your own team and also decide for the other team. What, in my view, comes to my mind quick when I look at the composition is that, one, I appreciate Kenya Kwanza's choice of youthful people for a major conversation. When you look at the comparison between the 2 teams, it's obvious that Kenya Kwanza has really been able to employ more youthful voices, which has not been the case on the other side. So that would be the first thing. Number 2, I look at Kenya Kwanza's attempt to be very strict on the structure. Because in structure, the majority leader is actually the highest ranking person in parliament, and therefore in such conversations, that person should really be the lead of that delegation. So when we again say that we want somebody who is equal to him, from the other side, or somebody equal to Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, I fail to understand then what we are interested in, whether it is about the conversation of Kenyans or seniority. Because the only person who would be maybe equal to Kalonzo Musyoka, who is the former vice president now, would be someone like Mudi Awori and other such people who are former vice presidents. So I fail to understand why we want to box this conversation into such. But be that as it may, let us not be able to focus more on the optics and the politics. I look at those letters and I feel they are more meant for the public than for the other person. Yeah, it's more about what the public, playing to public perception and public gallery. Azimio is really interested in ensuring that the public remembers that they have cost of living within that, because that is what there was an outcry when this started, that the public was able to say, we don't see the matter of cost of living. And this is what our Honorable Jeremiah Kioni was speaking about yesterday, I think in an interview, where he said, I don't understand what is going on in Azimio, because we went to the people and these were our issues, and I'm not understanding what really is happening. So there is more or less an internal problem within Azimio, and instead of solving the problem, they are talking to the people and playing public perception instead of solving the internal crisis in Azimio. And Olive, on this panel, severally, I kept saying that at the end of the day, we'll get to this place where we'll have this conversation. And I kept asking, what was the need? What is the need for people to demonstrate? What is the need for young people to die in the streets? What is the need for people to be put on the streets every day? What is the need for businesses to lose their profit margins just because we're having demonstrations and all these, when at the end of the day, we all knew where we are going? When at the end of the day, we all knew that we are going to sit down and have this conversation. After this conversation, the country moves on. We cannot recover the lives of Kenyans that were lost. We cannot recover the businesses that got lost. We cannot recover the businesses that got closed during that time that were having this banter. So at the end of the day, we have to really understand as a people that sometimes you do not really place, what politicians do does not have a centerpiece of our interests at heart. Their centerpiece is mostly their own interests at heart. And that's why today you can see within Azimio, the fault lines are already being drawn just because of who is on the team of talks. Meaning, it was not majorly about the content, but it's major about who is going to this negotiation table, because we know what comes with being in those teams. So that is the unfortunate scenario. But then, my insistence would be that these talks need to begin.
Okay.
And they don't need to begin on social media. They don't need to begin through letters. If these guys are writing to each other letters, I don't think we need to be, their letters don't need to be disseminated through Twitter. Let them have a sit down, let us have a conversation, let us talk and move the country forward and stop this political banter that is going on, which is basically just political expediency.
All right, let me move us along to the topic of conversation. Is Ruto planning a radical reshuffle of his cabinet? Is a question the Star has asked here on the front page of its Siasa pullout. Recent survey indicates 72% of Kenyans believe the country is headed in the wrong direction. And the author, Julius Otieno, says this was a rise from the previous survey conducted in February, where 62% felt the country was headed in the wrong direction. All right, this is how in the last couple of days Taifa Leo has put it. I'll begin with the inspiration for today's topic. Mawaziri mbumbumbu. Taifa Leo, Ruto afichua maafisa wengi hawajui hata miradi iliyo chini ya wizara zao, aonya vikali. And this is them signing their performance contracts. This is CS Nakumicha, who was later on the front page of Taifa Leo, and Taifa Leo put it this way: Serikali ya Sarakasi. She notably the other day ordered for the transfer of an OCS in Matisi. We have Alfred Mutua, and they reference the whole Canada jobs saga, the conflicting statements between Kithure Kindiki, Eliud Owalo, apparent conflicting statements on the WorldCoin issue. They've referenced Moses Kuria. I don't even know where to begin. But this one they have highlighted as the one where he said he would go and piss in Ichaweri. We have here Mithika Linturi, quoted as saying, sifahamu lolote kuhusu mpango wa serikali kuagiza mahindi ya GMO. He appeared on Wednesday before the National Assembly for question time. And I didn't hear, there was talk of apparently the speaker saying he was giving shallow answers. I didn't hear that because I listened to pretty much all of it. But there was a time when they were referencing Samburu and fertilizer, because there's an MP from there who asked, are they one of the priority counties, and if not, why not? And the speaker did tell him, you know, as a cabinet secretary, we'd expect you to have these facts on your fingertips. And we have here Aisha Jumwa. But I'm curious, there was a tweet by one Ferdinand Omondi the other day, Let me just pull it up, which was interesting to me. Ferdinand, I have been pulling up a lot of your tweets of late, but it's because as a journalist, there's the way he pens them that really puts the point across. Where is it? But essentially he was asking the question of, you know, how many of us even know, and I'll find it, but how many of us even know who these cabinet secretaries are? Mundalo, CS, Devolution?
Devolution is not a ministry now.
Correct. Nudin Hagai, Lands, CS?
I forgot his name.
Lin Jeru?
I know his name, yeah.
I'm thinking. The rest I think you would know. Yeah, but the PSs. Who do you know the PSs? Anyway, but is there merit? Have these lot of 22 cabinet secretary, in your opinion, underperformed so far? But let's start with, were you surprised, Domulo, by the president, the deputy president, the president's sentiments, beginning with those who are late, walisimamishwa kwa gate, and then now for the deputy president to tell us, we would not expect to be telling you guys to limit your foreign trips.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. Before I come to the topic, allow me to weigh in on the issues that were raised by Chege. I think Chege must understand that Mount Kenya voted overwhelmingly to Kenya Kwanza, and Ruto has an obligation to ensure that projects are taken down to the people, especially those who voted, who committed their votes to ensure that he's in office. The other day, the Mount Kenya people were complaining that Ruto is launching projects in other parts of the country while taking prayers in central Kenya. I think Ruto is going on a development tour, and some of the issues that he's raising, maybe the projects that is talking about that Ruto is going to launch, he should consult with me, because I understand and have the schedule, so I will share with him. And those projects are not part of the development tour. Maybe he had it from the PNU party, or maybe from his people from Azimio side. But they must respect the president. Ruto keeps his promise. Those who have worked with Ruto knows that he's a man who is focused. Apart from propaganda that they have smeared Ruto with, that people believe that Ruto cannot implement anything. So let us wait and see how Ruto is going to work in Mount Kenya, and he's going to launch projects that he promised the people of Mount Kenya. Be that as it may, it is indeed true that the government has had challenges with which the CSS have been handling administrative affairs. And that calls for three things. One, there is a need for the government to fast track the employment of government spokesperson to synchronize information and communication that comes from ministries, and also to disseminate it to the people of Kenya. Secondly, most of these people who have been appointed in these positions, they have been appointed on the basis of loyalty. You know that loyalty is rewarded and disloyalty is punished. Sometimes when you're forming a government, you need people who resonate well, who understand your vision, who work closely, and who are able to implement some of the agenda that you have as a president. Therefore, most of these people have been appointed as seasoned politicians, and they are yet to understand administrative issues. Remember, these ministries have not less than 15 functions. Some of them have even more than 20 functions, departments, and even parastatals. Therefore, they need time to understand, because the statement made by President only shows that is an indication that first is setting the bar high and telling the ministers to do a lot of reading and understand their functions and their ministries. so that they can perform, because what he's focusing on is to implement the plan as it is. So the CSS need to move with speed and understand, work with those who have worked in those ministries, because they need to tap into institutional memories. You know, there are small people in the ministries who understand these functions and they understand ministry. But some of these ministers, I think they tend to avoid these people. They don't want to understand the briefs that they get. So the president is just telling them is setting a tone and a pace that this ministry need to work hard to ensure that they move with speed and work the way he's working. Because I know Ruto is a performer, is a workaholic. I think he sleeps less, and that's why he is so focused. And you know, time is money. Some of them who come late, they know Ruto is somebody who wakes very early. So what he's just trying to tell these people is to wake up early, do what's supposed to be done. They need to implement what needs to be implemented. Okay. And the fact that Finance Act was just implemented recently, it means that we have a budget to operate on. And this means these people need to work. And then secondly, and lastly, you know, Ruto entrusted the work of performance contracting with the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. And you know the character and the leadership of Musalia Mudavadi. And that's why you see some of them signed a performance contract, which means that some of them are going to be held responsible, individually responsible for their work, and they're going to be measured with what they do and how they perform. Okay. And we are looking forward to ensure that if they're not going to perform, let Ruto review the appointment of the CSS, or even reshuffle them based on how they are going to perform. And this should not be seen as political witch hunt, because some of them are political kingpin in their region. Right. You know, in Kenya, some people just see that if you fire someone or reshuffle someone, they feel that they are being abandoned or sidelined.
All right. Hata mimi nimefanya makosa, nimeita mtu Lee Njeru na ni Zakari. Lakini nani alipita mtihani yangu. Advice, wacha tukige makofi.
Alikuwa na liki.
Ati leakage gani? Alijua trick question, none of the above. Between A, B, C, D, and E, akasema none of the above. All right, I found the tweet I wanted to pull up. Ferdinand Omondi, the president's very public dressing down of his cabinet secretaries was probably overdue. He mentioned that some were clueless about the ministries and others simply unavailable to the public or media to explain government projects. There is a CS infamous in media circles for giving blue ticks, never responds to media queries or genuine information requests, only speaks in official white-collar functions and walks away. Then there are others who most of the public do not even know of their existence. 9 months after they were sworn in, an invisible CS. Tell me, he says, without Googling, who is the lands minister? That was his tweet. Joseph Shere.
Yes.
Is it that when the president appointed these people, he had every intention of, I hate to use the word micromanage, but micromanaging these ministries, so he wasn't overly concerned with their technical understanding of the dockets he was assigning them to? But has he now come to the realization, close to a year in the job now, right? Not too far, not September. See, that it simply, you cannot run government in that fashion.
Olive, thank you. First, before I delve into the issue, I want to tell my friend, I have to answer him. I want to tell my friend Omulo, you know, I live in Mount Kenya region, and maybe what the president shares with them, what he's going to launch in Mount Kenya, is very different from what he does on the ground. 3 weeks ago, it might seem as a joke, but he launched Porridge in Murang'a. President launched Porridge in Murang'a. No other development he launched. So when he tells us that he's going to share with me what president is launching, I'm already in the ground in Mount Kenya. I know what is being launched and what is not launched. All right. Thank you so much. Oliver, I want to start with a Chinese saying that says that empty talks harm a country, but hard work make it flourish. What usually happen with this government is that if you ask Kenyans around, most of the Kenyans are giving up on the pursuit of beautiful dreams in their own country because of they don't have confidence with the future of our country from what they are seeing. When these CSAs were being vetted in Parliament, the president is not theorizing now. Everybody has been saying it all along. When they were being vetted in Parliament, I remember one John Bandi said that let the president have his skunk, because some of the CSAs were going there for vetting, and instead of answering questions, some were just crying to divert attention of because where they have come from, they have gone through a lot in life and so on. I remember even one of the CSAs that Wetangula the other day told that he is giving shallow answers. He went to Parliament and some of the MPs questioned why he has some cases pending in courts. And he said, to be specific, he had more over, I think, over 30 cases. What we are saying is that exaltation of virtues is a fundamental thing in good governance. But in this government, we are not exalting the virtuous ones. We are exalting people who have integrity. So it's not something like that it has caught President William Samoei Ruto by surprise. In fact, it is even a contempt to Kenyans when the president is going to public and telling them that he has some incompetent people in his cabinet. So it means that the 1 year that we have seen this government doing nothing, it seems they have not been discussing anything meaningful in that cabinet. Because when the president is saying that the CSA should be the ones to advise him, but in this case he knows more of what is going in their various ministries than the CSAs. What the president should do is to fire those CSAs. So we are asking our question, is who is incompetent here? Is it the president or the CSAs? Because we can't hire you to run a company and then you just go and assemble people who are incompetent to run that company, and then you come and tell us that my company is full of people who are incompetent. It means you are the problem. It is not the CSAs who are the problem. Kenya has a lot of people who can do that job. There's no way you can. If you look at the replacement, look at we start even with the Jomo Kenyatta government. If you look at the Jomo Kenyatta government, and that was at independent, 15 members of his cabinet were Alliance alumni. 2, I think, from Mangu, Maseno, and others had gone outside the country to study. That's why at the independent, when other countries, they had instability, our nation, we steered our nation to where we are now. Look at even Kibaki, the people he took in the cabinet. Look at even President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. You cannot compare all the cabinets that we have had since independence with these of William Samoei Ruto. You look at like replacing Professor Kobia with Aisha Jumwa. That one can tell you the reason why we are having delayed salaries and now and then in the public services. You look at replacing Professor Magoha with what is the name?
Mashogu.
Yeah? Oh, Mashogu. Replacing with Mashogu. That is the reason why you find even in our education system nowadays it's unequal, whereby some people are passing in one region while other people are just the cut-off marks in other regions. So what we are saying is this: if the president means his word of developing this nation, of that bottom up, he should go and take the best. The confidence of our nation, we have to put the best at the top. We cannot have people like people come like WorldCoin doing their things, and the next day the CS Interior is saying this. The next day the CS ICT is saying this. Right now, NHIF in most hospitals, if you have maybe looked at that issue, is not working. But we have the CS in charge of health, Nakuminja, firing chiefs and OCS in villages. Yeah, that should tell you the mess we are in as a country. Then the president coming and telling Kenyans that have realized that we have an incompetent government. But he has gone again in Mount Kenya to do campaign for 10 days for 2027. Olive, I think we need to be serious as a nation.
All right, so we need to take a break, and Rudin, this will allow you time to Google some lyrics. Nani ameangusha Chinese saying hapa.
But he did not say it in Chinese.
I translated it.
Google Translate. All right, we'll take a break. We come back. We'll get the Nurudin Hagai's thoughts on the same and advice Mundalo.
The guy is giving us a
nyanjani hadi hewani ili ujue kunani. Kila Alhamisi jioni tukutane stesheni. Mimi ni Nuru Abdulaziz na hii ni NTV.
Hallelujah! The Lord is worthy of all praise.
God rewards faithfulness. And he's saying to Abraham, you have been faithful. You have walked the journey, you've stayed the course. And I will show myself faithful on your behalf. When we pray, we say, God, we are trusting you for breakthrough. We are waiting on you for breakthrough. But do you know what? Sometimes it is God who is waiting on you.
In your paper this week, Russia, Africa ties. Who's fooling whom? Africa's hunger offers Putin an opportunity to fight isolation. Khartoum generals and Ruto on warpath in search of Sudan peace. BRICS expansion jolts NATO to pivot towards Africa. Plus our opinion leaders. Who will sing a truly East African song or write the new East African book? Charles Onyango Obo. Religion, football and feminism. Lessons from beautiful Game 23. LC Eakuze. As cars become quieter, a case for Africa's roads to remain loud. Joachim Buembo. For these and more stories, get your copy of the East African.
Centum Real Estate offers you an opportunity to own a home at the Two Rivers development. Mzizi Court residents, talk to us today on 0703 262626 or text 2 Rivers to 22365.
Thank you for staying with us on AM Live. With me today we have Advice Mundalo, who is National Youth Chair, Jubilee. We have Varnudin Hagai, Advocate of the High Court, Mulo Junior Director of Political Affairs, ANC. And we also have in studio Joseph Shege, Social Secretary, Party of National Unity. I'm almost there. I'm warming up.
Secretary.
Secretary.
Very important.
Secretary, Social
Services.
Yeah. All right, Nudin, we're coming to you next. There's this tweet I came across. Oliver Madenge, State House says, and this is from 2 days ago. State House says, right? It's 2 days ago. Yes, State House says there will be a press briefing at 1 p.m. and like on previous media invites, the agenda is not indicated. Unaona penye anaelekea? Haya, hapa chini tukaona Honorable Mutua Lloyd akajibu, he set, okay, I think he means set. He set the grounds yesterday. Today could be a reshuffle. And then you look at the Siasa, front page of Siasa pages. Star leo ndio hii, wanatuambia, wanauliza swali, is Ruto planning a cabinet reshuffle? Mbona kuna hii appetite ya reshuffle in your view?
You see, I think that is courtesy of the dress down that we saw in the open the other day. But let me take us back to where confusion started. Because let me use the word confusion. Because this government is highly confused. You ask. The first blunder we saw was the Sahrawi blunder. Immediately after him being sworn in. The tweet that went out, courtesy of advice from someone who was meant to be the foreign CS, but was later sent to a certain ministry to go and play. Okay, and lead that ministry. So now, what we have the other day is that the president now reading the riot act, saying that some of you don't understand what you're doing, some of you are late, and what have you. Now, two things are going to happen. If at all the president is serious with whatever he's telling us or showing us, and it's not a PR gimmick, then heads will roll, and that reshuffle that people are talking about will happen. Now, what we are seeing is cabinet ministers, we are told rather, that they don't understand their scope of duty and everything. But then again, they're given a performance contract. So it goes back, so who's the problem? You or them? But let me play the devil's advocate and say that maybe the president has started listening to T-Pain. Because, you know, T-Pain has a song called Second Chances. And so maybe he had the lyrics to Second Chance and believed, you know, let me give this guy a second chance. But maybe it might also be a trap in that he's setting them up for a feast. Because when you look at this, we were told it's a one government approach cabinet.
Yeah, I've heard that
where
now.
you mingle, or rather you interfere. You know, in law, we say intermeddle. You interfere with another ministry where you have powers that you don't have, and you decide you can transfer OCS, which the law is very clear on that. Not even the interior CS can do that.
Yes.
And so you ask yourself, do they have advisors? But it comes with the fact that some of these guys are shocked by the razzmatazz, they are shocked by the sirens, they are shocked by the power that is there, and to date they haven't settled in. Now, the travesty is that most of these people are said to have suffered with the president in the trenches. And so they were rewarded as loyalists. You are with me when I was done for ABCD, so I'll give you a job. Now, what we need to understand is that competence isn't based on loyalty. And that is what we are seeing. Because we had the deputy president talk about a certain CS that changes his clothes in the airport, that has traveled way more than the president and him. So you ask yourself, do you know a cabinet secretary cannot leave the country unless it's given approval? So who gives the approval? So it goes back to the appointing authority. So between you and the CS, who's incompetent? You get? So if it's not a PR gimmick, what we saw in the open, then heads have to roll. But if, like I rightfully told you, if he's listened to T-Pain, then he's gotten a second thought. And maybe he's setting them up for a feast. Now, you look at, for example, how things are being done in the same government. Let's give examples. Number one, let's use the WorldCoin. You had a CS for ACT here, and he said that to his knowledge, they have not breached any known law.
Yes.
Before he even settles down in his office, Kindiki comes out and says they've suspended WorldCoin. And you ask yourself, so which government is this? And then you have the foreign affairs minister who lied to people about Canada, now tells us now,
allegedly.
No, he did. He did, because the Canadian embassy.
I have to cover myself.
The Canadian embassy fact-checked him rightfully and said whatever he's saying isn't the case. So now he comes out and says we have to support the Interior Ministry because this thing is wrong. So you ask yourself, which cabinet is this? Or rather, do they have a policy? Do they discuss before they give out information? Because I remember even before they had the first cabinet meeting, Aisha Juma was out here already doing things, and then the government had to fact check. Now you look at Moses Kuria was giving directives on GMO. The Minister for Agriculture comes out and says, hold on, hold my beer. You're coming too fast. I haven't answered anything on GMO. So you ask yourself, is it confused? Is it convoluted? But the problem is that most of them are bosom buddies with the president. So they feel that whatever I do, nothing can be done to me. And that is why some tweets come out from Moses Kuria. And you ask yourself, you're a cabinet minister. Your Twitter handle is very public. Anyone that is anyone in other government sees whatever you tweet. So you ask yourself, is that how you carry yourself? And so we need to get to a situation where if heads have to roll, then maybe the president already has his mindset. And maybe he's now waiting to tell them, once he puts them on chopping board, nilikupea kazi, ukashindwa. So that he covers himself from any backlash that might come. Because we are being told some of them are kingpins. I don't know kings who are the subjects to the kings at the end of the day.
Okay.
So we look at a situation where heads need to roll because there's a lot of confusion. And most of the cabinet secretaries, some are best known for raiding mansions at night. Most of them don't understand the scope of their work.
All right.
So unless we see action, then this circus will continue for 4 years.
I'm afraid to ask who was reading mansions at night. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I know the whole saga. But Nyumba ya Karen, advice Mundalo. It appears so. Is this? Do you see the president saying, okay, it's been once a year hits, right? The debt, whatever debt I owed, has been paid.
I think first of all, Olive, I pick issue with that headline of Mwaziri Mbumbumbu. I think it's too harsh a judgment for people of the level of cabinet secretaries. It goes to the same thing I saw one of the ODM MPs describe advisors of the president as stupid. I think that is an overstretch, and we shouldn't be able to get to those levels.
But you see, advice Mundalo, what I mean, the president himself said, I know more about projects in your ministries and you are the ones who are meant to be advising me.
Yes.
A deputy president says, some of you change at the airport. You leave one country, change at the airport, go to another country.
Yes.
This was public. So how now is Taifa Leo at fault?
I'm not saying they're at fault. I just said I pick issue with the headline. Those are two different things. And two, just because the president said that, the president didn't call the cabinet stupid. The president didn't say they were incompetent. Those are things we are saying ourselves. Yes, the president said and pointed at a cabinet that is not very hands-on. And one of the problems I have, Olive, is we are a country that complains about the work of civil servants and especially senior ones like cabinet secretaries. But when the president highlights it himself, then we again pick issue with the president highlighting it. Again, I tend to wonder, what exactly do we usually want? Because we feel like something is not going right. When the president also feels like something is not going right, again we feel like the president is
but
doing
my
the
question
right
to you,
thing.
advice if you will allow me, advice, let me,
minutes. Just allow me
I will give you time. I will give you time to prosecute your point. No.
Yeah.
Advice, I will give you time to prosecute your point. My question to you is this. There's a famous quote
that's the third question,
of the previous holder of the office who said, mnataka nifanye nini? Yeye akituambia sisi tusikie, anataka tufanye nini? We are not the appointing authority.
And that's what I was prosecuting before you.
No, but you're saying, what do we want? When he says, what do we want?
And
we take issue with him saying.
I was still saying that it is, in as much as there is an issue, sometimes we don't need to extremely overreact. We do not need to feed the country with too much bile. You can see my friend Joseph Chege has fed the country on bile until he said, thank you very much. That is, we don't need to get to those extreme levels, Olive. And when you look at this country, by the way, we need to also remember, people who watch us, really, most of them depend really on our opinion of the country. And when we paint a certain picture, that is what they buy. This country is not doing as bad as we imagine. Fuel prices just went up in Tanzania by 27 shillings the other day. When you compare the state of Kenya to many countries in Africa, we are not as bad. So I'm not saying I'm trying to be an apologist for these cabinet secretaries, but I'm just trying to say, let us not paint a doomsday picture, because at the end of the day, it helps nobody. And I understand where the president is coming from, because Olive, I listened to the speech of the president that day 3 times. And why 3 times is because I think it was one of the rare speeches that I have seen the president speak that had no light tones. We know the president in his speeches, he always has this friendly tone and a lot of light moments. This one did not have. That painted to the reality that the president was extremely serious with this issue. Extremely serious. And that's why he highlighted it and put it as it is. And you would also feel the burden of the president when you need to deal with matters of the United Nations, matters of the World Bank, matters of the African affairs, and you still have to deal with a CS who is transferring an OCS. It is basically something that should not be within the purview of the president. Those are things that should actually just not be there. So I agree that we have CSs who are still, I think, still excited, if I can use that word. So they just need to start getting themselves in order. And I agree that these political rewards are not extremely bad, because it's politics. But again, at the end of the day, political rewards have to also come hand in hand with competence. Because when you reward someone who will not be able to deliver, the buck stops with the president. And so this person will be able to put your track record somewhere that you're not going to like. And this thing that everyone is talking about, reshuffle and all these kind of things, I don't think the president said he will reshuffle the cabinet. I think we're just picking it from the tone that he did. And I don't think reshuffle does anything to incompetence. I think if you're incompetent, you're incompetent, whether we give you another ministry, because no ministry is less important than the other. So I think at the end of the day, let us be able to be patient and see what exactly the president will have to do. But these cabinet secretaries as well, they need to pick cue from what the president said. When it is said that people are traveling more than the president and the deputy, at the level of a cabinet secretary, you're an advisor of the president. You should not be corrected on such petty things. Those are things that should be corrected with junior servants. But now when you are at that level and we are supposed to be like monitoring how you travel, monitoring how you dress. You are giving too much work to the presidency per se. So those people are just supposed to start getting their house in order. But again, Olive, you know, the Ministry of Interior.
Advice.
These people talk for 40 minutes.
No, what 40 minutes?
Yeah,
allow
Nurdin alone talks for 40
say
minutes.
something.
So let me finish.
Wrap up.
Let me finish. So, in as much as we are putting up all these, one, I would want to say we cannot say all cabinet secretaries are incompetent. That would be too harsh. We can say some, not all. And some of these ministries, Olive, like take a case example of the Ministry of Interior. That ministry has 33 state departments, if I'm not wrong. So this is a cabinet secretary who is supposed to know about 33 state departments. So it is sometimes not very far-fetched that you can raise a question in one of these departments, and at one point somebody will not be able to have an answer to that. But that does not mean that I'm trying to say they are right in not having answers. These guys must just put their house in order. We are dealing with pettiness like transferring the OCS. We are dealing with pettiness like a minister declaring something about another country and that country comes up to rebuttal and reject. We are dealing with things like mouth diarrhea from a whole cabinet secretary. These are things that they should just let them give the president a break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So we agree on that one, because at the very minimum, you should have an understanding of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Omulo Jr., tell me, is the president reaping what he sowed? Why I ask that is because, you know, the same question I've asked this government doesn't have a spokesman. He's the he's the one who calls for journalists to go to State House, and now he briefs us. He addresses everything from security to education. You know, is it that he had... Yes, is he reaping what he sowed?
I think I wanted to, there's something that they say in Latin and also in law. They say, res ipsa loquitur. The fact speaks for itself.
Yes, I remember you.
And the fact is that Ruto is a competent leader. If you dig history, you'll find that Ruto has never failed in everything that he does. From the elections as a member of parliament to the presidency. He has risen from the grass to grace. Is somebody's focus. Those who have worked with him knows him. And in leadership, sometimes leadership is not about isolation. Leadership is about teamwork. And that's what they say in Latin, manus manam lavat, meaning that the hands needs to work together. At least I'm interpreting. So you see, Ruto is just trying to communicate to the cabinet secretaries that yes, we have started our financial year. We need to implement what we promised the people of Kenya. There are things that they have implemented, there are things that they are yet to implement. And I believe that, yes, we accept that we have had challenges with communication, because there are a lot of good things that have happened in this country that the cabinet secretary are yet to communicate. They need to resonate and work well with the people of Kenya. They need to communicate these issues. And that's why you see the president has come in to bridge the gap. And sometimes I feel it feels odd that you see the president calling the press conference to communicate everything and even to tell Kenyans what he's doing and what needs to be. But that is leadership. Leadership, you come in, bridge the gap, and tell your people, motivate them, and allow them to work in such kind of environment. So let us not misjudge or let us not, take issues with communications that come from cabinet secretaries, because they're human beings. They're about to make mistakes and they have to learn from those mistakes. They have just signed the performance contract. It is 1-year contract. They'll be held responsible. And the president is just trying to tell them that, yes, you are my friends. We campaign together. But since you got the appointment, it is high time now we work for the people of Kenya. It's not about friendship. Let us separate friendship and leadership and performance. And that is what is going to be done. And the excitement that comes with Azimio, and Chege is rightly saying, the reshuffling thing is neither here nor there. I think it's just anxiety that's coming from Azimio, because they believe part of this agenda in this dialogue is, creating of these positions, and maybe they're expecting some of their people leaders to be part and parcel of the cabinet. And that's not going to happen. And the president has made it very clear what needs to be done and the agenda that needs to be discussed in this dialogue.
All right. But Joseph Chege,
Yes.
treat us like children, we will behave like children.
Sure.
Has he empowered his cabinet secretaries?
Olive, first I want to say that if you are a leader, then lead. What is my friend saying?
Advice to say?
I'm asking, how does Chege know that?
No, I'm asking. Actually, how does he know that? Oh, Chege.
Yes.
Chege?
He would know. I mean, it's just a saying. I'm not saying that he has fathered I don't know how many. Anyway, and actually, who said something about 33? Is it you, Joseph? I'm being fact-checked here by Dan Mwangi, in the very good company of two beautiful children. So he can tell us if you treat them like children, do they behave like children? Yes. But 33, who's talked about 33 state departments?
It's Mundala.
It was me.
Interior, did you say interior? 3. Did you mean 3 state departments?
33.
33. Okay. I'm being told interior has 3 state departments, hence 3 PSs.
I think
unless you meant state agencies.
I meant state agencies.
Okay.
And functions.
Okay.
I think that's
Okay.
what I meant.
All right. Yes, Joseph.
So what I was saying, I was saying that if you're a leader, then lead. Don't just give Kenyans empty talks. What we are saying with the president and the PR. What I'm saying, Olive, it's true. Because when it reaches to a point of the president coming and admitting in public that some of his CSS are clueless, anataka wa Kenya wafanye nini? Kenya to go to the ministry and fire them? It is the president who employed them. You see, Olive, the top leadership of a country should be the pace setters for the rest of the country. But are they acting as pace setters for the rest of the country? You know, it's not that Kenyans are being harsh. It is the way they are portraying themselves. When a cabinet secretary goes to the parliament and the speaker of the National Assembly, who in fact is a Kenya Kwanza person, tell the CS that he's giving shallow answers. He's not giving the answers that they want.
But you know, just for the record, I did not hear the shallow answers part. He did say on the question of Samburu and fertilizer that because he has to give me guidance, he was answering something on leather.
Yes.
And so he said, give me guidance. Was it the question of, no, it was the question of sweet potatoes.
Yes.
It was asked about sweet potatoes in Kericho County. Yeah. And it was like a supplementary, he called them, the speaker called them joyriders. It was not the person who had submitted the question. Yes. So he said, since I'm answering questions on leather, I can't remember if it was fertilizer or sweet potatoes, but since I'm answering this question, should I also address this question? Then he was told, go ahead, because I would assume you have the facts as the CS on your fingertips. So the part for shallow,
exactly,
unless it was the implication, is what you mean.
That's the implication. So I was saying that the top leadership should be the pace setters. But can Kenyans see the pace setters with the CSS that have been appointed? You see, Oliver, if we are going to develop as a nation, if we are going to reform, the pit that already we are in, we need people of high caliber, people who have knowledge and good command of technical expertise in their various ministries. Kenyans are there. We have so many Kenyans who have expertise in various issues, and they can do this job very well. We don't have we don't have a luxury of having political sycophants and loyalists running down our country for the sake of it. Right now, Kenyans are going through a lot in life, and we want to be confident that the people already on the seat, they can do the job. But you know what is dampening the hope of Kenyans is the president himself admitting. And he's not admitting for the first time. So that's why I'm telling you these are PR gimmicks. When they were in a hotel around Mount Kenya region, Nanyuki, you can remember the same thing happened when he was giving those CSs to try and to talk about what the plan they have for their various ministries. Yes. And the president said the same thing. He said some of these ministers, they don't even know what their ministries entail. So it's not the first time he's saying it. It is another like 8 months down the line, he's saying the same thing, because the president, what he does PR with Kenyans, just to take the credit for it. Oliver, I want also to say that you see what he's doing with these cabinet secretaries. My friend Umulo said that the president has never failed in his project. The only project that president has succeeded is campaigning. Because the moment
All right. I will have to stop you there because unaenda direction nyingine. But I have some feedback for you here though. This is Barsitei Arap, who says this Joseph Chege guy says President Ruto is going to Central to relaunch Uhuru projects. Nothing could be further from the truth. Dr. Ruto has always gone there to launch projects. In essence, that's how Uhuru Kenyatta derogatorily branded him. Tanga. So they wako same page na Omulo. Is this hot air? The president's pronouncements, because Joseph correctly pointed out, this is not the first time people were locked out of a meeting for being late. Yeah. The same happened when cabinet retreated somewhere in Mount Kenya. And essentially we were told they were given, what do you say, riot act? What's the phrase? They were read, they were read for the riot act. Why should we believe the president now?
I think it's not a hot air. The hot air is a narrative that...
and also the question of austerity, because remember they were told, those with, don't come here with entourages, we are saving money, but then we are still reading stories about parastatal chiefs who met somewhere in Naivasha and it was just fuel guzzler drivers, PA.
I think let us always speak the truth. I think Azimio side or the opposition is reading too much into every issue. They are criticizing everything and anything that comes from Kenya Kwanza.
And I believe the basis of this conversation is not on something Azimio said. It is on something the president said.
Of course,
so
I've explained that we have just started the financial year, and the president is hands-on. He wants all other ministers or cabinet secretaries to work with him to implement the agenda or the plan. So let us allow the president to implement and work. Remember what Chege is saying, even Azimio, even before campaigns, they had already appointed the CSS, like Wamalwa and other people, even Joho. Are they competent? Are they not politicians? So let us sometimes speak the truth and allow the president to work for the people of Kenya. So time will tell. Ruto is someone I know, and those who have worked with him, they are yet to learn him. He's someone who will implement every detail, and I believe he'll use that as a springboard for his re-election in 2027. All
right. Nurdin, you wanted to chime in?
He said, let us speak the truth. And seeing that he loves Latin sayings, I remembered one on top of my head. It says, veritas nunc perit. That means the truth never perishes. All right? So, in putting it that way, allow me to say that incompetence knows no barrier of time or place. Fast track to that day. After the riot act or dress down, the take home from most cabinet secretaries was how to keep time. That is all they understood. Olive, you can be the best timekeeper, but you'll end up having with so much time to do nothing. In essence, what are we saying? Talking about the competence. Now, the president has a role, like we rightfully said, he has a role to see who is competent and who is not. Now, whether they're being micromanaged or not, that is upon them. We don't know that. I'm not inside there to know that, but we can see. It's like, it is kinder. But even if you've been micromanaged, don't you have ideas? Or you just chill and being told, lift that pen, put it there, sit. You see, so at the end of the day, we need to understand that they are there courtesy of the taxpayers, they are there courtesy of helping the president achieve his manifesto. When the president was sworn in and was about to name his cabinet, I was in one of your sister channels. And I said, in him achieving his manifesto, or the plan as he calls it, it majorly depends on a cabinet he settles for. Yes. The day I saw that cabinet, I told the friends I was with, this, my friends, just wait for the confusion. The utter level of embarrassment we are going to see. And it didn't take long. We've already seen it. So it's upon him to understand whether he wants to remain with the same people. Because I believe your cabinet ministers should eat, sleep, dream, repeat your plan. If he was to do an exam and put them in a room, every person regarding their ministry, on how they will help him achieve certain promises in his plan that actually touch the common man, 3/4 of that cabinet will fail. And let us be honest. We're not saying all, but 3/4 will fail. So at the end of the day, if at all whatever he's doing, he's serious, then we'll see the fruits Because, you see, whether you hide it or not, incompetence has a way of just showing itself.
Okay.
Whether we hide it or not. So at the end of the day, if that was not a PR gimmick, then we'll see the fruits. But if it was to play to the gallery, I'm saying if, not that it was. If it was that, we have 4 years for a circus. And I end by saying, if you elect clowns, expect a circus. The circus is on.
All right. Advice, Mundalo, very last comment before I'm accused of giving the others 40 minutes. But quickly, advice, Mundalo. If indeed it is true, what this InfoTrack poll has demonstrated, that from 62%, 72% of Kenyans now feel that Kenya is headed in the wrong direction, it is an indictment on this administration. Are the CSs now being used as a scapegoat?
Not really. And then my view about that InfoTrack report, I think it is nothing away from what is ordinary. Most governments, when they get into office, it is always not very far-fetched that within their first year, they would not be very popular. Because at that time, government is trying to get itself on the right pedestal. It is when they are now trying to get everything right. So it is always that they will not be as popular as they came into office. So there's nothing strange about that. Maybe the percentage is a little higher than what would have been ordinarily, but that is also because this government came into office with a lot of promise. And it came into office on the back of the hustlers. So the expectations from this hustler nation was quite abnormal. They thought that lives were going to change instantly. They thought as soon as the Bible is put down, there's a miracle that is going to happen. But the reality is that there is work that has to be done, and there are processes that have to be followed. So it is not very abnormal that they are not very popular today. But what I would say is that away from the matter of the CSs and everyone else, there are many people who are actually civil servants. If everyone put their mind to the right job, then this country will be able to move forward. Okay. Even if all the CSs did the right thing, but the civil servants did not, we would still have a crisis. All right. Even if they did the right thing and then the president did not, we would still have a crisis. Okay. So as long as you have a PF number for government, all right, it is incumbent upon you to do the right thing.
All right, I have to, because what Jackson is threatening to cut us off. Advice, Mundalo, National Youth Chair Jubilee, Inter-Parties Youth Forum Secretary General. We have Nudin Hagai, Advocate of the High Court. In Latin. Omulo Jr., Director Political Affairs, ANC, Joseph Chege. I have a quote. Secretary Social Services, PNU, Yusuf Shiko. There's nothing wrong with relaunching projects that are relevant to development. It only shows continuity of purpose. It's high time we did away with basing development on election promises and have a solid roadmap that whoever is up there continues. Olive Barrows, AM Live. Good morning.